Welcome back, everybody, to the Smite Challenger Circuit Qualifiers. Aggro here to break down our third and final semifinal of the day, or quarterfinal. That's how numbers work. But first, I want to let you know that if you haven't checked out the brand new Esports and Live Streams tab in-game, you can support your favorite SPL teams there. Buy their bundle, you'll get an avatar and award, and it does contribute to those organizations directly. So if you want to be repping the PK, well, avatar, go ahead, man. Wrap those PK nights. All right, like I said, time for our third and final quarterfinal of the day today. I'm joined by Mifflin here on the Bologna Consortium of Knowledge. Miff, these two teams that we have left, it's Priv's Penguins up against Have Unooo, and these teams are not as star-studded as some of the other rosters we've seen come through, but they've clearly earned their way to these quarterfinals. You've got Priv's Penguins, led, of course, by Privative, and teaming with Conviction. Those two were on Big Money Esports together in the PS4 side of NA last year. And on the other side, you have Unoo, a lot of names that I'm not particularly familiar with, but I recognize at least Dr. Flik in that solo lane. I know because he often bodies my friend in the casual Xbox queue. If you're in one of these games, I mean, you have to know that this is going to be a tough one because you might not know that much about your opposition.
Not only do you not know much about your opposition, but you don't know anything about their scenes. It's a disparity. It's PC versus box. There's a couple console kids on each squad. However, that's a hugely different playstyle. There's going to be a little bit of a disjoint, I think, within both teams that'll allow us to see a highly aggressive game from both sides. They're going to look and vie very hard for an early lead, I think.
And that's going to be something that both teams are going to be looking for, and maybe that will be reflected in the draft potentially on what they're going to end up picking. I know that I've seen Privative in some of these higher level ranked games on PC, so we know that he's been practicing over there. But I imagine that teaming and trying to get in this final week qualifier, I mean, this is do or die for these guys. I think it's going to mean a lot to them.
Yeah, especially the console boys. They are hungry. Every single console kid, you can look at their Twitters, you can look at their streams, you can look at anywhere, and they do have very active Twitters and streams because they're constantly playing. They are hungry to prove that they can compete at this level, especially now that the console scene is relatively gone.
Well, let's see what happens here in game number 1, and the only game, because again, it's the quarterfinal. It's a do or die for both of these teams. Looks like Have Unooo will be in that first pick position. They're going to start off with a Camazotz ban. I imagine that Camazotz is one of those picks that I'm a little surprised every time I see it in the first ban slot, because I feel like that's a first pickable god every single game.
It is first pickable, but there are other gods that you might want more. You know, Yamoja, so potent, can win your team fight with that shield and healing instantly. So you might be worried about that. If you take the Yamoja, you give up the Camazotz, so you might as well ban it out early and see how that reflects on the enemy team. Sure. I know that when I was on a team, I used to do the drafts for my squad. Now, they would be like, yo, Kronos is the best guy in the game. Dating myself right now.
Sure.
Kronos is the best guy in the game. Let's not ban him. We're first. So I'm like, what if we did, though? And we did. And, you know, it worked out sometimes.
Is it because what Air Cougar was doing with the Kronos in the long lane, or did that have anything to do with it? Unri couldn't play it in mid.
Unri can't play much of anything anywhere. However, Air Cougar was potent on that Kronos.
Sure. Batz is the first selection there for Have Unooo. Do you think of Batz as a first pickable god right now?
Batz is a safe first pick, but it's not one that I would prioritize.
Yeah.
You can put Batz on any squad, and it's going to do well. You know, Fear No Evil is so good. Having a traditional leap makes you a very safe pick, as well as that secondary mobility on the Sacred Monkey. Going to be able to get you across the map very easily. However, you could have went Kukulkan, and I'm going to fault you for it. Kukulkan's where you should have gone, Unoo.
I agree. Kukulkan is certainly a premier mid laner right now, and getting that in Privative's hands, I think, is a good call for this team. Ullr, of note, this is the first time we've seen him picked or banned at all so far in these qualifiers, so we'll see how he can do. As an early Hades pick, I imagine that's in response to the Kukulkan, but it's a weird matchup dynamic because you get absolutely crushed by Kukulkan's damage, but he has a hard time getting away from you. Those extra prots help out in that situation, I guess?
I mean, the extra prots definitely do help. You know, you're going to be a little bit tankier in your ult from Hades. However, if you ult anyone besides Kukulkan as Hades, you're not going to be able to find damage because he's just going to drop the tornadoes on you. What are you going to do? You're going to sit there in it? I know you have that extra protections, but is it enough to tank a tornado? Absolutely not. And if you do decide to sit in it, Speeder the 9 win is going to literally crush you.
Yeah, you get a lot of prots, but still, it's quite a bit of damage that Kukulkan can output. I like the Kumbhakarna pick up against Jing though, because it's still set up for that Kukulkan. It's guaranteed ults off Epic Uppercut, but it's not one of those ults like Xing Chen ult that normally sets up, but Jing just gets to ignore. because of that agility. As Ratatoskr is an ultimate that Jingwei can largely ignore a lot of the time. Not a big threat for Jingwei in that long run.
Ratatoskr brings so much global presence, however, that maybe you have to be a little bit worried about it. If he does ult and Jingwei dashes away off the knockup, Rat's going to be able to chase down very easily with his dash, slow him with the slow dart, then, you know, stun him with the acorns. It's a decent matchup, but you're right in saying that Jingwei does escape the ultimate, but maybe not Ratatoskr as a whole.
So it looks like it's going to be Hades solo. That did have some flex potential there for Unoo with the Merlin locked in, and now an Osiris we haven't seen a lot of so far. Which draft are you liking more?
I gotta favor my boy on Privs. Kukulkan, Kumbhakarna, and Osiris. That's 3 hugely potent picks. Kukulkan should win the middle lane. Osiris is almost never going to lose the short lane. And, you know, you've said it a lot. Hades 2-second fear, real good.
It is good.
Hades sucks.
Okay, Hades does not suck. He's a good character. I don't know if this is the right spot for him. We'll see if it works out, though. The final qualifier game to determine our final team going to the group stages, it's Priv's Penguins versus you Have Unooo!
Air horns ringing out in the distance as game 1 is about to kick off. Gormizer joins me to call game number 1 and the final game for this one. Priv's Penguins up against Unoo. And Gormizer, right off the bat, there was some pretty high-tension conversation in the
Yeah, I honestly think we should have
knowledge.
just stayed up there. They probably could do it better than I can.
They were very excited and very opinionated about this Hades pick.
See, it's weird because in my mind I have to argue both sides, but I like Hades. I've always liked Hades, and that's probably a big issue, is that he's just sat with me in a fun spot. Granted, you know, he's kind of fluctuated from in and out to in meta, and right now he's in a really weird spot.
Whoa.
As that was a oddly early blink
out.
to close some space, but hey, I mean, they're going to split this blue camp.
Hear me out. They're going to get the blue buff faster.
Yeah.
Right? That's how it works?
That's you know what? And you nailed that one right on the head. That's exactly what they did, and that's about all he's going to get for that 100 seconds that he has to wait before he can blink on anyway. Granted, as Hunbats, you're not blinking on people too often this early.
Sure.
It's just an interesting choice to have it come out that fast and have him do it. A lot of junglers have also been like the conversation of, do I buy Hog to try and go forward to help clear over there and then move over towards the mid lane?
He did have Hog, so maybe there is some merit to that early thought. An early 1-level lead in the long lane is going to push Priv's Penguins back underneath that tier 1 tower. So Blink, notwithstanding from Nicely, he did purchase and use the Hog right off the bat. Do you think in reality that just speeds up his clear in this early game?
I think it's going to end up helping him, hurting Hades. Hades has been losing a little bit of the experience over there, mainly missing some of those minions early on, and that's where that very small lead right now is going in favor of Wicked. But that's kind of the biggest thing. Wicked just being, you know, maybe at this point actually about 1 minute or 1 minion ahead is making a big enough difference that, you know, level 5 he gets his ult a little bit faster and maybe could fight this Hades a little bit easier. But so far, he's been able to stabilize in the solo lane and keep things more or less under control. And I mean, Hades just, again, he does everything that you need him to if you're in solo specifically, which is I can clear the wave easily, I can heal myself so I can trade out and poke. The only issue is it's all kind of centralized around the wave, so if something goes wrong for them clustering up, you just don't get it.
The action continues in the long lane and not going to result in a death this time around. You do have to be careful if you're Monster, though, as there's plenty of return damage there. A bit of a more, I hesitate to call it traditional start, but we have seen in the last couple of games the junglers, or the Guardians rather, kind of moving into the jungle, helping their junglers, moving immediately over to middle lane. Gore, we're seeing a more standard start here with the Guardians sticking with their duo lanes.
Yeah, and honestly, I expect to see that mainly because we have more quote-unquote conventional supports over here. I do think Horus, one, could rotate very easily, not just to mid, but to help out his assassin in the jungler, the Sunbats. But Kumba, I mean, part of the reason you have him is really good setup against the Jingwei. I think he can actually help this Ullr take control of this lane early on if they decide to get a little aggressive. They just need a time where maybe Horus isn't there, maybe Horus makes a rotation where this Kumba just stays in the jungle.
Well, he blinks again, Nicely does. So obviously, number 1 wasn't a mistake. He's just using that for a little bit of gap close on some of those buffs. Blue buff goes back over to Hades, and aggressive continues to a lane. Got to be careful of that Ullr. He can certainly CC you and turn around some good damage.
You know, I will give him credit on Nicely's end.
Yeah.
As much as I like to maybe meme it and think it's kind of silly, admittedly, Blink is something that you're not using until you really want to engage
Sure.
at level 5. Like, until you're level 5, you don't need it on cooldown, and it's actually perfectly set up now. It'll probably come up a little after he gets that Fear No Evil, but knowing that he can use that as an extra movement ability without having to use any of his mana on his jump or trying to teleport to a buff, he can just blink over, close the gap, get that XP a little faster, back to get boots, and then he'll start making these rotations much more efficiently.
I guess the only way that bites you is if in the early game you get invaded on or you're about to die or something and you don't have the dash in your kit and you need to get out, but he's played
fine.
safe enough and kept himself alive, even got a speed buff invade just a few moments ago. And after a tough start, honestly, for this Hades in the solo lane, he's starting to get to a point now where he's going to be able to quickly clear out those waves, and Osiris, though, is going to have plenty of sustain himself. Is there any, like, real, well, I'm going to ask about kill potential, and maybe not, as Wicked jumps away. Do you imagine that this continues a lot like solo lane normally does, just some poke on either side, requiring a jungle gank maybe for a kill?
I think so. I think Hades is going to be able to self-sustain enough to make it a little worthwhile for him, or a little more difficult for Wicked to make his poke worth anything. And Wicked, well, Lord of the Afterlife, in this case, there's no player-made walls where you need the passive to run through anything.
Yep.
You're just looking to jump away or jump in. I think in that moment, like if Ratatoskr's a little closer, maybe they hadn't noticed the rotations coming out from Unoo, he could have gone in, he could have jumped up, down, right onto that Hades and looked for a kill. But it's that risk versus reward. Am I going to kill myself for this, trying to get it? And admittedly, play it safe. You're in solo. You already have a lead. You don't need to throw it away.
We've seen plenty of aggressive blinks this game as Peripheri moves forward, looking for an engage on the right side just a moment ago. And now we have maybe a return to what we started to see earlier today, where the Guardians, I guess both the Hunters are starting to reach that level 5, level 6 mark. They're just going to start to rotate around and maybe help their mid lanes get some farm.
Yeah, and this, again, is so far par for the course. The only thing that's kind of caught my eye is that Privative has decided to kind of go for his boots and finish those off completely, as opposed to getting that Thoth online just a little bit faster, which admittedly it's not going to change the end game, but it will change his power curve. And right now I would argue his gank ability, just more difficult to lock him down since he can run away versus before, or at least if he had gone for Thoth, it'd be different to lock him down because he could just kill you with the power boost he would have gotten from having a Thoth that's stacked to the point where it gets to full.
Well, Priv's Penguins have to be careful kind of rotating around that Pyromancer. Doug points out the ward, so they at least have some sort of knowledge. Unoo does, and both teams deep into the enemy side of the base. 6 minutes in, Core, we haven't really seen too much, full-blown engagement. Yeah. Some blinks used for jungle buffs, a couple blinks in from Peripheri to try to set up a fight, but no kill just yet. 6 minutes in, nicely might try to change that. Beads used by Privative to keep him alive, but the fight continues elsewhere in the mid lane, and Horus is going to make his way underneath that tier 1 tower. Nicely backpedals away, and we still await the first blood in this game.
I honestly thought it was going to be done there, but Privative was so on top of those beads that it was perfectly timed, to the point where the minute Fear No Evil is out, he's already making a beeline back to the tower. He knows exactly where his trouble points are going to be. It was a great call from Nicely, and it does lead to maybe some aggression. You force him to back, which is a small win in and of itself. He didn't have enough gold to finish his Book of Thoth, so he's still waiting on those stacks. He loses a little bit of farm, and your team gets aggressive into the jungle just to find there's nothing there, but you have some more control over here.
Yeah, the thought was there. If that blue buff was up, it certainly would have gone over to Unoo there, and the Fear No Evil was down, so they probably did think twice about engaging on that one. 7 minutes and 20 seconds into this game. We are relatively even across the board, Gore. You have a 500 gold differential. There is a bit of an XP swing on the side of Unoo, and if you're looking towards Unoo, and so much of the push and pull of this game hasn't resulted in any kills throughout here. It's hard to predict the future, and it's something that we try to stay away from. But do you think this mid lane continues to be a heavy point of engagement? Maybe that's where we see one of these first fights break out?
I think now that beads are down, Nicely is going to have his ult up relatively soon. You don't always need Blink to make that work, but he's got 30 seconds to wait versus the 70 seconds on the other side. It's definitely one of the engagements that could go through, but right now it's going to be Dr. Flik.
Yeah, it is mid lane, though, still under the presence of aggression from both teams. Ultimates burned defensively for the most part from Priv's Penguins, and you have Unoo was looking for just a little bit, and that was Dr. Flik, as you point out, popped the ultimate in the back line. Starting to get tense, though, Gore. It almost feels like both teams are so nervous about giving up a big swing in gold with the first blood, they're kind of tentatively engaging.
Well, right now they're not going to tentatively engage. They're going to engage and see what they can get out of it.
They're going to lock down Peripheri, and that's the Fear No Evil in the back line. He's chunked down. oBillyG is going to try to turn around enough damage onto Wicked to maybe grab his team the kill, but plenty of sustain out of that Osiris to keep him in this fight. Merlin's going to tiptoe his way back, but now they're caught between a rock and a hard place. Oh, big three-man knockup. No kills just yet. That's the airstrike right on through. Conviction. He grabs the first blood in this game. Plenty of low health bars to capitalize on as well. Locked up. WitchCraft, excuse me, grabs kill number 2. And as we stand, Priv's Penguins have bought themselves a little bit of a lead.
They're a little low right now, but honestly, pull off, get rid of Dr. Flik, maybe lower his health bar. If you can body block him for the kill, that's absolutely worthwhile. My eyes are on that Fury just behind you because you're going to have rotations coming through. Respawns are starting to happen here, and you don't have the health bars to stay here forever. Now that Conviction has backed as well, you lose a good chunk of damage. So I like the call to disengage. It was one of those moments, Hades was just too healthy to fall back into a Gold Fury because he could still come in and contest, but wasn't so healthy that that fight could go in his favor, so you have to make that split-second decision. Is this worth trying to fully commit on? Can we take down Dr. Flik, or should we just fall back? And ultimately, they tried to, but his health bar right now is still just too much.
Probably realizing that he used his ultimate, a minute or so ago in that right-hand side jungle fight, so it was probably back up just in time there to contest a Fury. But as we stand, finally some kills on the board. This time it's Priv's Penguins. The jungler was able to grab one as well as Conviction, but all that does is truly even up this game. It was about a 500 gold differential for Unoo, but now we stand a little bit more even. Dr. Flik is going to pull in Wicked with his ultimate. Doesn't pull that much damage out, but nicely is in for the counter gank. Wicked, beautiful, Fear No Evil sends Wicked underneath the tower. And that's the Batz capitalizing nicely. He's on the board.
And I just want to say, in the vacuum, that 1v1, that's Wicked's fight to win. That gank is well-timed to keep your solo laner alive, but admittedly, Wicked just maybe a little too overconfident in what was going on for him. There was, again, a moment where he could have used his ult for more damage. By the time he finally had it as an escape and ready, there was a Fear No Evil on him. He has no beads, no way of getting out of that one, so he's just pushed under tower, and it's a free kill tossed up for Unoo.
It's looking like first tower as well is going to be going the way of Unoo here as Priv's Penguins outer tier 1 tower. I guess it's technically the same thing. Their short lane tier 1 tower falls down. Gold lead evens right back up. Can see, though, the aggression starting to come out kind of in that long lane. Transcendence picked up for Conviction here, a bit different than the Bloodforge picked up there for FreshKills.
It's going to be a lifesteal battle when it comes down to it. Transcendence, you're getting some of that cooldown reduction, which I think you absolutely need as Ullr. But that's not even the most important stat when you're him. You need the mana more than anything. Ullr is just so mana hungry early on. Once you finish Transcendence off, even at base, you don't need the full stacks. Once you have the base, you can go through because the cost on these abilities and how frequently he needs to use them is really what starts to eat away at it. His clear ends up costing him enough early on that you get maybe 2 or 3 waves at the beginning of the game before you're like, man, I wish I had like 3 more mana pots to keep this going for me.
You almost have 6 abilities, right, that are going to eat up the most of your mana.
If you're playing aggressively, too, you have to deal with the fact that you're trying to stun and leap out. It's just so much.
Well, there is objective secure for Priv's Penguins thanks to the Kukulkan ult, and they were thinking about a Gold Fury to move themselves away, and the solo lane continues. There is no jungler to help out Dr. Flik this time. Wicked might realize that, moves in, drops his ultimate down, just needs a few more. Hey, there's that 2-second fear aggro love so much, but not enough to get Dr. Flik out. It's like Fire Giant might have done a little bit of damage there towards the end. In the mid lane, though, Peripheri falls, so as the dust settles, it's a 1-for-1 with kills happening on either side of the map.
I love what Dr. Flik had in mind there, which is that because of Osiris' attack chain having some splash damage, if you're near the Fire Giant and he hits you with one of those, all of a sudden, that Fire Giant's on you and you're going to take that damage. Unfortunately, Dr. Flik fell into his own trap there and ended up taking that damage. And it's just, you play what you're given, and unfortunately for him, Wicked just had the better cards.
And results in finally coming to fruition a kill that...
The full solo lane.
That's right, and we had seen a couple moments, and Dr. Flik, I think, engaged a moment ago when there was a gank coming in from Nicely, resulted in a kill that time. But I think you have to be scared here at this point. Wicked is built right into some magic defense as well. He's going to have just a fine time going up against Dr. Flik, and even then some. Normally it's kind of a push and pull in that solo lane. Right now there is serious kill potential.
That's the biggest thing. I think Wicked Warriors as a whole have just a better matchup in the solo lane. They can itemize into that defense without sacrificing too much in terms of their power, so Wicked can still fight here as Osiris. A lot of the items he's getting are giving him defense against either this Hades or this Batz. That's going to be helpful, and keeping him just tanky or just powerful enough that he can find a 1v1 kill. Hades has, on paper, more damage, but the problem is that's not going to be enough to sustain you in the 1v1. You need a little bit of those procs to help you stay alive. Sure. And until he finishes off this hide, until maybe he even has some straight up just physical defense only online, Wicked has a pretty big advantage, not just in the level up that he has.
No, Conviction is going to drop right down onto Jing, but FreshKillsPark has that airstrike to get himself out. Witchcraft up to the sky, maybe looking for one final shot onto the Jing, but yes, not quite within the range of that ultimate there, so he's going to back himself off, get himself back out to safety, but now this tier 1 tower in the long lane is under a bit of duress.
So for anybody in Smite, save for Jing, that's a TKO. Like, it's enough to say, okay, they're out of the game. It's not going to be a full, like, 30 seconds like a death timer, but they're not getting farmed for a little bit. You get control of the lane. Jing just backs and she's right back in lane. Sure. Like, she's perfectly happy. In fact, as far as Fresh Kills is concerned, he wasn't even gone for that long to be able to come through. And that's the dangerous game here. I think Conviction needs to find these 1v1s. I think a gank onto this Jing, knock her out, opens up that Gold Fury into the conversation a lot more heavily, especially now that Osiris is on this side of the map.
That's right. The solo lane for Priv's Penguins has started to rotate down. Hades still up top, or in the short lane rather. He is going to go back to base, maybe sensing a Gold Fury is on the menu here. Priv's Penguins started up. There is some contest in. Spirit of the Nine Winds flies through, doesn't finish it off, but does enough damage to let Priv's Penguins grab that Gold Fury. And it looks like that's where this one's going to fizzle out. Grab yourself the Fury, back yourself off.
A very clean disengage. I will say, Privative was a little early on that ult. It made me a little nervous for a steal. But hey, it was only a little bit, so it's not going to be enough to cause any trouble. And I love this from Unoo. They know you're going to be backing. You just got a good chunk of gold from the Gold Fury, or you're going to be caught outright. Privative is under duress in the backline.
Yeah, he has to burn his bead, but that's a Fear No Evil used by Nicely now, and Wicked follows him over the wall, and that's a kill. Onto the jungler for You Have Unooo. For Priv's Penguins against You Have Unooo. Pyromancer still may be a target here if they're able to force You Have Unooo to disengage just a little bit, but the fight rages on. They're so slow, so much damage. Beautiful tornado from that Kukulkan. Witchcraft finishes off the kill. They want a little bit more though, Priv's Penguins. That's up into the sky goes Ratatoskr, crashes down, connects with oBillyG, who falls, and that's a double kill now for the Rat. 3-0-1. And you got to be careful. That damage is going to start to ramp, and he's going to hurt real bad.
Twice now I've seen oBillyG in Fire Stance, which absolutely melts through tanks, and it can melt through objectives. And he has to peel himself away. He has to pull away from the fight, and it doesn't end up helping anybody on his team. And he doesn't have his ult available because he just switched stance into that fire. So he needs a little more help, either to help secure this or something, because he's just getting picked off like a fly.
Well, for the longest time, oBillyG was kind of the only one with a level advantage on his opponent, with Privative being, maybe half a level, 1 level behind, and still holds a 1 level advantage.
Yeah.
Is that maybe where you look if you have Unooo? Do you need to kind of work your way through this Merlin to keep you in this game?
I honestly think Jing is actually becoming their more power spiky.
You got that rage, right?
Terms, yeah. I mean, you get this rage online. Granted, Conviction already has a stack on his, so you're falling behind in that sense. But you've got some crit chance. You're gonna get some power out of it. So once you get that 5th stack online, you're gonna be able to hit hard. And admittedly, you're the one who's going to be able to burn people down a little bit faster. Normally, Merlin, in my eyes, is absolutely a way to work forward. But I've seen Billy get caught out in that stance twice now, still using abilities, but having to run away from the fight, that I don't know if you can rely too heavily on him just yet. I think it's just good focus from Priv's Penguins to recognize how big of a threat he can be and is, so they just burn him down as fast as they can.
Well, it does sound a little dramatic, but maybe that's what our job is. Of the 6 kills Priv's Penguins has, a third of them are on oBillyG, so he might look for a little bit more peel. They play a little bit more safe, and he's going to flicker his way out of that one here. What's next for Priv's Penguins? The Pyromancer's taken down. You look to just siege some of these towers?
Honestly, yeah, you can clear up at least 1 or 2 of these tier 1s. Jing is looking to trade one out for you. Hades is off in your jungle. mid is free for you, and you could probably follow up on some kills, especially on a nicely here is overextended.
A Peripheri into the passive, and this might be one of the rare times where they're not able to get that Kumbhakarna killed off. And
Oh no.
looks like he is going to be able to pop right back up. So the passive is down, back off cooldown, but he's not able to disengage from the fight fully. The rest of Priv's Penguins have left that area, and Peripheri does finally fall. But now MonsterxBomber looking to move his team in. Keep your eye on that Horus icon. Just moves them underneath that tier 1 mid lane tower. Spirit of the Nine Winds doesn't connect for all that much. And by and large, Gore, they lose a mid-tier 1 tower, but they grab themselves a kill.
I mean, it was tower for tower. Jing is still pushed up over there in the long lane, so admittedly the gold kind of nullifies itself. They come out net positive with a kill if you're Unoo here. And it's kind of a weird decision in my eyes from Priv's Penguins. I think they have that fight in their favor, but right now they're chasing down nicely. Wicked needs this one to help even some of the score.
Well, he grabs the stun and thus grabs the kill as nicely falls for the second time this game. Gore, this Osiris is going to be something to deal with in these team fights.
Yeah.
Lots of sustain and relatively tanky to boot.
He's definitely been causing a lot more trouble than I've seen out of Dr. Flik. Dr. Flik, I think early on could make some interesting rotations, but his window to work is, does Privative have Spirit of the Nine Winds or does he not?
Right.
If he does, I don't want to ult because then I'm just sitting here begging to be killed. If he doesn't, then maybe I can go in and actually, again, the kind of polar opposite of a Fear No Evil, pulling everyone in towards him, set up maybe Merlin for a lot of kills. And I think that might be a big point of contention going forward, is the fact that until certain abilities are down for Priv's Penguins, which they're not getting baited out that often, Dr. Flik doesn't feel like he's going to have anywhere near the potency that you have out of this Osiris, who can just run at you for a little bit and then ideally chase you down and kill you. But worst case scenario, you're half health and you're out of the fight.
Well, how about the build coming through from Dr. Flik? I mean, he has the Pythags piece for, you know, a little bit of power, some lifesteal as well, but then opting into a little bit more defensive, almost like a magical bruiser, sort of in a way. Is that where Hades wants to be?
Well, it fits in really well, specifically for solo lane. Again, it's the protections that are going to help keep him alive in these fights, allow him to dive deep and use his ult the way he wants to. The problem is, again, that his ult, just as good as it can be, Pillar of Agony roots you into one spot. And when you have a Kukulkan on the other side, that just is begging for damage to come down on you. Same thing could be said for Conviction or literally anybody on their team. You're just a target.
Tower dive, but airstrike back to safety for FreshKillsPark. Very close, though. That's probably the closest we've seen Jing to death this time, but the disengage ultimate enough to keep her alive. That's Oni Fury started now for Priv's Penguins. You do have Jing quickly coming back from base, albeit, but it is back from base. So for the moment, you have a 4v5 if you're Priv's Penguins, but they're one more time smartly going to take that Fury and disengage.
Priv's Penguins are doing everything right in the sense that they are winning 7-3 in terms of kills, but you can kind of ignore that and just look at where they've been winning their objectives. They lose the first tower, but they get a gold Fury, which is net positive for them overall in my mind. Then tower for tower. Now they have an Oni Fury and they got that last Pyromancer. Every objective they take is helping them get a little further ahead. And it's these small victories on the side that are cultivating a large gold lead. Yeah, experience. Right now, you can start to ignore it because people are going to be hitting 20 relatively soon. It's incredibly close between them, but it's just advantages on Billy over his mid lane versus like Wicked over there in the solo lane. So those, I would say, ultimately wash out, but the gold, that sticks around, and you can see Wicked's already fully stacked on items. Granted, he still has his blessing, but everyone on the team is starting to get to that point.
Well, there's still a tier 1 tower in the short lane, maybe up for grabs here for Priv's Penguins. If Dr. Flik is going to move his way back out to safety. That's a free Pyromancer taken down now, and Priv's Penguin continues their objective secure here in this game, and that's Pillar of Agony used by Dr. Flik, but down comes crashing that Ratatoskr. He's down to about 10% health. Osiris drops his ult as well. Spirit of the Nine Winds just wide of finding any serious damage. Hades does finally fall. That looks like MonsterxBomber is just going to get himself out to safety as well. So it is a tier 1 tower as well as 1 kill. At the moment, that looks like where it'll stand.
Honestly, it's where this Hades has come in and what he's been able to accomplish hasn't been enough, I think, to warrant the pick. Where they picked it, it was kind of already countered. And I think he's feeling the full brunt of that against him right now, but Fear No Evil's ready.
And that's a great airstrike as well, as a Fear No Evil sends this fight running in a couple different directions. There's a tier 2 tower dive happening, and Wicked has plenty of protections as well as the relic to keep him alive under that duress. oBillyG falls for his 3rd time this game.
This Divine Ruin is so silently doing work, but one of the things I think of, specifically against MonsterxBomber, who's right now just getting absolutely eviscerated, is that heal right there that keeps him alive in it, gets fresh kills stacked back up, and allows them to turn that kill into Witchcraft. But when it has been proccing specifically onto MonsterxBomber, it's just made his life a little more difficult because you're not getting anywhere near as much off of that dash.
That's true.
That anti-heal is not going to be like maybe the most potent thing. It's not going to be the most obvious. There's very certain scenarios of did MonsterxBomber dash or has Hades used his heal?
Yep.
And am I countering that directly? But every time he's in position for it, and specifically so far when it's mattered most in my eyes, they've gotten a kill out of this.
Well, Divine Ruin has been perfectly itemized against that Pythagoras piece and the gods that are on Have Unoo's side. For his Penguins were able to secure the Pyromancer as well as a couple of kills. They do lose Witchcraft on the back end of all the engagement, so that's the Ratatoskr's first death here in this game, and they are nursing about a 3,500 gold lead. The Fury down. At one point, are you starting to maybe consider Fire Giant, and do you use it as a bait, or maybe look for an engagement?
I honestly think we're at the point for Priv's Penguins where, with their secure, specifically having Privative online, Spirit of the Nine Winds is one of the best ways to take down an objective at all. You can start to look to bait on it, but you don't even need to finish the, it doesn't have to be a bait. It can also just be, okay, we'll take it for free.
Right.
But this is where I think they need to focus more over there. There's still a tier 1 over there in the long lane that, maybe you want to push it down, but the minute any of your gods show up on the minimap over there, that is Unoo's sign to go in and fight. So you want to keep everyone over here, and you can see they're doing it tastefully as well, making sure they can keep a little bit of a zone. And this is going to be the dance for the next 30 seconds. And someone's going to go in. My eyes are on Witchcrafter nicely.
And just strictly speaking, they do have the deeper wards here in this engagement. They've been able to push through into Have Unooo's side of the jungle. Small engage, Spirit of the Nine Winds, no good, one more time. It's a good Fear No Evil into the backline of Priv's Penguins. Might delay the re-engage. Plenty of health bars dropping down. Pillar of Agony pulls in a few, but Conviction finds their first kill in this one. So many low health bars now for Priv's Penguins, but can they capitalize? Conviction feeling fine to move himself in. Peripheri does have the passive up, and he pops right back into this engagement. Despite all of the damage, Have Unooo. Wow, what a turnaround from oBillyG. That might save this fight. He's certainly going to drop, not before a triple. What a turn there. Have Unooo. Sure, you lose 4, but you're able to grab 3 thanks to that Merlin.
And nicely, just barely gets out under that tornado. oBillyG gets a raise right now. I'm calling. I don't care what else happens. Unoo, you need to pay that guy more, because that is the difference between this game being over and you staying afloat in here. If they only lose 2 there, there's still some room for a Fire Giant. Losing 3 fully, the fact that he was able to juke out so well absolutely nullifies that. Now you're in a position maybe to try for this Primal Fury, set yourself up for Pyromancer and Fire Giant. But you save space, and that's the biggest thing. oBillyG early on this game was getting zoned out. His cooldowns weren't ever really working for him, and he wasn't finding many kills. That moment single-handedly turned it around for him and his team.
Beats used by Privative here as the Fear No Evil drops down. MonsterxBomber doesn't want to take that fight, and nicely doesn't either, sensing maybe Priv's Penguins were starting to collapse over on that Primal Fury side of the map, but it is the relics burned by Privative there. Used the beads as well as the Aegis to keep himself alive, and that's a big loss on your mid laner.
And so far, normally that screams, okay, nicely can go back there and get the kill. But we've seen a lot more, and that's already a dead Privative.
That's right. He had nothing to keep him alive there, and Dr. Flik was able to move in and capitalize. 1 for 1. That's a hunter for a mid laner here as Privative falls, as well as FreshKillsPark. Dr. Flik has the mobility to get himself out alive, but Wicked is here, and he's ready to fight. Conviction finishes off the Hades for the 5th time this game. Dr. Flik has fallen. It's a 2 for 1 for Priv's Penguins as they take control of this left side of the map.
I'll trade Privative for that. I mean, it kind of sucks losing probably one of your largest sources of damage, but a free Primal Fury, again, setting you up for Pyro and Fire in the future, as well as the fact that you're already kind of in control of it. 1 lone triple kill is what kind of sustained this game for Unoo. And how often can you count on BillyG getting that? It was a sick play, but can he do it a
He
second
can
time?
do it every
Can he
game.
do it a third time? Like, that's where the question has to be when you're looking ahead. Whereas Privative, I mean, Spirit of the Nine Winds is on a cooldown. It's going to come up every single time. His life is on a cooldown. It's going to come back every single time until the game is over. So, yeah, trade him out for 2. Get yourself a Primal Fury. It's worthwhile. Because you are running the show still, I think, if you're Priv's Penguins. And a lot of it's going to be determined, I should say, by this next like fire pyro dance.
Well, don't you dare discount the legend of BillyG. He's going to get a triple kill and then steal away the Fire Giant, and then they win the game, right?
So I want to know, it's not just me. Every time we say BillyG, the first thing I think of, first off, is clarinets. But second off is Billie Jean, and I start singing the song a little bit in my head, and I have to stop.
He's not my lover, right?
Yeah.
And all of the above. But he is the guy who's kept you Have Unooo in this game thanks to a big turnaround.
That was one of the lyrics that was originally presented in the song, but they had to cut it. It just didn't make a lot of sense at the time.
Right.
Smite wasn't out, so they were like, guys, I don't think we can do this.
And MonsterxBomber was, I'm pivoting us away because this is a wormhole I'm not ready to take the dive on just yet. Not when the game still is potentially this close in the balance. It is a 6,000 gold lead, but most people starting to reach that level 20 kind of full build mark here. Objective secure, still objectively on the side of Priv's Penguins. You have that Spirit of the Nine Winds, and the Fire Giant dance is looking like it's going to start here, and it might just come down to one pick, one catch-out core.
I mean, that's where these fights come through. And actually, Dr. Flik, he's been a lot bigger in these last couple of fights, a lot harder to kill now that he has 3 defensive items online to keep him a little tankier when he dives in. Pillar of Agony's still not the best, but, I mean, if you're able to isolate, burn either beads, Aegis, or both off of Privative and or someone else, you're perfectly fine. Specifically, Spectral Armor helping him out as well. It's just been so big to dive forward. Right now, it's the dive going the other way.
Spirit of the Nine Winds flies through, tons of damage onto MonsterxBomber, but it's not going to finish off the kill, and that's a good Fear No Evil as well to send a few members of you Have Unooo scattering. They're not going to capitalize on it just yet. Peripheri moves himself away, but Dr. Flik is here to fight. Pulls back in. That Kumbhakarna passive started. That likely is going to be the first kill here for you Have Unooo. Jing is going to be the one to capitalize, and that may be all she wrote. This could be an FG started for Unooo.
I mean, a lot of ults were already burned down. The fact that Spirit of the Nine Winds is not available makes BillyG maybe the bigger mage in this one. His objective burn is going to be huge for this Fire Giant, but you're going to need some kills to get you there.
Lazy back. You got to know they have wards on that side of the map. Nicely blinks his way away. And it's going to leap his way over the wall on top of it, or rather takes his teleport. Still has the blink available. Slight fear onto Wicked, but that one is shrugged off as well. Priv's Penguins, despite being a man down here, still feeling somewhat confident to contest these objectives.
Well, now that Wicked has been pushed out, now that Privative is gone, that opens up Fire Giant in my eyes, but it's still susceptible to so much. I mean, a Lord of the Afterlife, while it's not this huge burst of damage, still is enough to be able to jump in and steal a Fire Giant. You have to be very careful with it. And again, that's where BillyG, in my mind, comes in handy along with Fresh Kills. They should be able to chunk this down and burn the Fire Giant incredibly fast. And it's already at half health.
Yeah, your main source of confirm is no longer on the map. A small engagement up top by that blue buff. Nice double stun from the Ratatoskr into a Fear No Evil from the other side. Wicked first to go down. That Osiris has been pivotal, but he's not going to be pivotal here in this fight. Privative still back in bases. Nicely capitalizes for his second kill. And now Priv's Penguins down 3 members. You Have Unooo. They have taken this game right back into control.
They don't seem too ready and too keen on pushing the Fire Giant. Again, too low on their health bars overall and not enough healing, even though they have 2 sources of it to be able to pull them back in. MonsterxBomber still floating in the area. And nicely might be able to rotate around, but I like what they did. Push the waves up, get control on the lanes. So no matter what with this Fire Giant, you still have an advantage over there in the sides. 1 tier 2 is getting pushed down. Ullr's on the left-hand side of the map. This is looking clean so far.
It looks like we've reached a point in this game where despite the gold lead being about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 4,000 and some change, all the item builds are getting there. Fire Giant now taken. That's going to spike the gold differential just a little bit more even. And I think that's a good point to be made. Yeah, there's a 2,000 gold lead for Priv's Penguins, but XP is on you Have Unoo's side, with the only person not at level 20 on their team is MonsterxBomber. He has the 1 level lead there as well. you're looking at who makes the least mistakes as we approach the 33-minute mark.
Yeah, it's falling into the area where the gold difference is sentry ward coverage, upgraded relics, vanity items where you're able to buy that speed potion, sell your boots, and pick up a 6th item to help kind of get you that final power cap that you want. And right now, Conviction is right around that area. He had just tested the waters with it. I saw him sell his boots, buy the potion, then realize, wait, I don't have enough. Let's cancel that and come back to it.
Yep.
But it's also power potions here for Fresh Kills, along with the Fire Giant and the full build that he has already. It's making things a little easier for Unoo to get back in this. And so because it's become what I'll call like vanity items and little changes like that come through in the relics, it's making it a lot more capable for Unoo to come in. They got that tier 2 in the right lane. They're looking to get this tier 2 in the left lane. And mid is, well, kind of just a sneeze away from dying because they have this Fire Giant.
Yeah, a stiff breeze knocks that one over, especially the Fire Giant and the Oni waves are soon going to be crashing in to that mid tier 2 tower. Bit of a split approach here. Hanging out is all 5. Remember, you do have a Horus on Have Unoo's side. No Phoenixes are down, so no backdoor attempt to be had just yet. But I think that this is just, let's be methodical. We've got this game in our hands. But on the other side, Priv's Penguins, they're looking towards these Phoenix defenses.
Well, and they have these Oni minions coming down as well. They've got everything in their arsenal working for them, and they're going to be able to dive deep. MonsterxBomber looking for kills, but the team makes the right call. Focus the objective.
Nice. That's a double mez from Peripheri. Is going to maybe stall out this fight just a little bit longer. Witchcraft had used his ultimate and didn't find much for it. It is Wicked over here in the mid lane, contesting up against nicely, and the Oni minions have been dealt with. Just a couple of pesky archers are going to kind of separate this fight. They do send 2 mid, so somebody from Priv's Penguins is going to have to rotate through, and you don't even need to take all of this Phoenix right now, but they just might. That's a Fear No Evil. Peels off Wicked. Mid lane Phoenix is down. Left side Phoenix under attack. And that is 2 clean Phoenixes. So much damage from that Jing helps them secure them. They're going to back off. Give this one a few more pushes.
I'll be honest, I think they were in the same boat as me, where it's like, oh, there's only 2 over there. Maybe we don't need to send that much to coverage. And then Fresh Kills just melted that Phoenix, much like he's looking to get melted right now, trying to disengage and dash away.
Who am I kidding? I say uh-oh, but it's a Jing with Beads, Aegis, and
with everything
right?
available, yeah, she's perfectly fine. But, I mean, that's huge. You don't even need this next Fire Giant like to go your way to make that worthwhile. That being said, yes, you still want it, but they just got everything that was worth their while. 2 tier 2s is going to make a ton of gold in your pocket to finish off your items. Then you get 2 Phoenixes to get those fire minions spawning up. This next 2 minutes might be a little more patient just because that Fire Giant respawn will be huge, but that fight could very well determine the end. 1 win from his Penguins, rush down mid, you can still get to the Titan as long as you get 5 kills, maybe even just 4. But 2 kills, I would say, for Unoo plus a Fire Giant makes that Titan so susceptible to death.
Quick thoughts. We talk about kind of late game vanity items being picked up. Stefan Meerden picked up here from oBillyG on that Merlin. Do you like that itemization?
Oh yeah, it synergizes really well with the Merlin coming through, and it kind of makes sense since it was added to the game with it, but right now it's going to be Dr. Flik engaging.
He might not have the chance to use it as Wicked cleans up the Merlin right off the start, immediately answered back. We have a 1-for-1 fight. Fire Giant buff still applied for another 5 or so seconds onto Have Unooo, but Peripheri moves himself in, mesmerizes 1 as FreshKillsPark airstrikes down. Suddenly your Kumbhakarna split from the rest of your team. Both sides are going to slow this one down. Priv's Penguins back themselves off. Still a minute on Fire Giant, and that's about the same amount of time on those death timers. It looks like that's where we stand for now.
I would argue more worthwhile, hands down, for Unoo. It sucks to lose oBillyG. I think you need him specifically around the Fire Giant fight, but he'll respawn in time for that. You get rid of Witchcraft, you have Fire Minions pushing it up, which is causing a lot of distress here for Priv's Penguins, and starting to shake them down a little bit more. Again, 1 person that is isolated on the left side of the map makes it a lot easier, very similar to what we saw last time for that Fire Giant to be opened up. But they're grouping up.
They're trying it.
This is looking a lot like something we got to see last week.
Looks very familiar, but this time Priv's Penguins absolutely no. Pulls up their sleeve. Don't look like they had really any deep ward coverage, but at least just had the line of sight. There is a small blue ward over by the back race there for Have Unooo. So something you do have to be mindful of, though, with 2 Phoenixes down and an open Titan, and a Jing with a massive crit build certainly can melt that Titan very quickly, but instead these teams look like they're going to pivot back towards fire. Do you contest this if you're Priv's Penguins?
man, you have to, but you don't want to. Right now, Conviction, unfortunately, or Witchcraft, someone needs to be in that left lane dealing with fire minions because they're pushed up right now. They're pushed back a little bit from the base, but they're going to get in there pretty quickly. Meanwhile, Dr. Flik can get aggressive. He can go in. The same with the rest of the team.
Conviction just far enough outside of that one. Spirit of the Nine wins, flies on through, but shrugs off a lot of that damage. Fear no evil, but Wicked solo can't capitalize. Witchcraft, that's a solo kill on the Hunter for you, Have Unooo. Suddenly, Priv's Penguins, maybe they're going to feel confident trying to re-engage on this fight. They're going to move themselves back behind that Fire Giant pit with Wicked drawing the card of person who has to go back and deal with some of those big minions. It looks like one kill is maybe all we have, but Fire Giant still in the eyes of both teams.
Still in the eyes. Fire minions, you're seeing the last couple of waves now running down the lane as the Phoenixes are going to respawn. They might have one more spawn coming out for the waves in terms of the fire minions, but it's going to cause a little bit more trouble, I think, for Unoo more than anything. I mean, the fact that you've showcased, yes, we can get to your back lane. We can kill off your Hunter and cause more distress for you over there. Keep Wicked over there for one more wave. He'll clear it out. He can teleport back over.
Yep.
And then you have a different fight on your hands, and it causes a lot more trouble around this Fire Giant. Spirit of the Nine wins is back up. Privative can do one of two things with it in this fight to make sure it's theirs, which is hit somebody and potentially kill them with it, or just use it to secure the objective. Either way, it's a win.
Well, good note there. Maybe a small side note, but Wicked does have the fully upgraded teleport and is going to use it now to rejoin his team on one of those wards, whereas Dr. Flik does not. So he can only take himself to one of the remaining tier 2 towers that stand on their side of the map. Wicked moves in, and the dance continues here. It kind of has the makings of maybe one final fight. Dr. Flik has wanted to get aggressive on some of the squishy backliners. That's an epic uppercut onto the Hades, but he's locked into place here. He's kept himself alive and hasn't done that much damage. Osiris capitalizes on that kill. MonsterxBomber drops right on down. It's another 1-for-1 kill, but you lose your Ratatoskr in exchange for a 1-in-6 Hades.
I honestly think it's better to drop the Hades. I mean, Ratatoskr has been the reason they've been able to get to fresh kills for a lot of these fights, or at least for 3 of those deaths. It has been more or less on his back to get back there, shut them down, and cause some trouble. Now Conviction's caught out.
Oh, and they're moving themselves in quickly. They knew he was trying to back there. Just needs a little bit chunk more of damage. No mana on that Merlin. oBillyG senses this and maybe tries to disengage as the rest of Priv's Penguins are coming back from base. MonsterxBomber wanted the kills, not going to find it, and he dashes right back to the rest of his team. Peripheri knocks up one as that ultimate is still back online. FreshKillsPark does have the airstrike, going to disengage on this one with Wicked, slowing down MonsterxBomber, but the dash is still up. And now we're returning back, or to seemingly some early game form where both teams very tentative, slowly engaging, and no big sweeping team fights.
I kind of love it, though, because it's this tug of war right now between these two teams where each one is trying to flex just a little harder than the other, and then they overflex, and it starts to hurt a little bit.
Right, they pull a muscle, right.
And they have to go back to base, heal up, they come back in, and then they're able to do it. But right now, Pyromancer, I think, is the name of the game. One objective in your favor sets things up for you to be ready for the next one. You can back, spin, still make it back before anything can go through, especially with the way Priv's Penguins are spread out right now. You don't have to worry about Fire Giant too urgently. Honestly, you could maybe sacrifice someone for a Primal Fury. It might not be worthwhile since you still have 5 people over here from Privs, but it's one of those like back notes like, okay, Phoenixes have respawned. We need something to break those down. Primal Fury would set us up to burn that Fire Giant a little bit faster, so if we get these 2 kills or 3 kills engagements, we can burn it down. We can not only take the objective, but now that it's enhanced, completely break down the base and win the game off of it. The same can be said for Privs. I mean, one good kill like this could absolutely set them up.
Spirit of the Nine wins. Doesn't connect this time. There were a couple targets just outside of range. That's a Fear No Evil. That's locked up a few members now. But are they able to turn around the fight? Wicked has so much sustained, so much damage as Privative is finally able to find the first kill in this fight with Conviction adding number 2. These are 70-second death timers. 5 members strong, 3 members left on defense. That's a big fight for Priv's Penguins.
And I like the call. You have to decide right there. Do you want to go for the tier 2? Do you want the Fire Giant? Fire Giant enhanced will definitely help you out a lot more here. Fall back, kill it while you have the opportunity. You've got a good zone. Jingwei is nowhere near. They're just looking to try and equalize these minions as they can. So you're going to get 5 members strong with it. That engagement was full-on Unoo just focusing so much damage into Peripheri that no one else seemed to be anywhere on their radar. Peripheri goes down into the passive, and then they realize, oh no, we committed way too much to a Soul Kumba and now we've given up the fire.
That was a decent Fear No Evil to start off that fight. They just weren't able to get much more off of it. This is now a very nervous right side Phoenix. If you have Unoo, this has been a tug of war of a game. Jing can melt these Phoenixes, but so can a full build Ullr. Gonna grab that one, move themselves back with Fire Giant in the back pocket. Maybe just keep themselves safe and look towards these other tier 2 towers.
And full build is the one that needs to be like underlined in bold. There are very minimal, I see what, 4 pairs of boots, I think, still online, maybe only 3 now across the board. Everyone has the full 6 items, and Conviction opted for his Titan's Bane at the very end there. It's more pen, it's gonna help him deteriorate these towers and these Phoenixes a lot faster, as well as open up the door to just burn MonsterxBomber and Dr. Flik. The engagements that were there for Unoo might not be there anymore because of this change. And that's going to cause, well, I mean, changes in decision making. How do you fight into something that's going to burn you down before you can finish what you're trying to accomplish? I mean, you get stunned as Dr. Flik before your ult goes off, you should be dead.
Doug smartly hovers the Bulwark of Hope, picked up by Wicked, drops his boots, grabs himself that item. Primal Fury started and melted down by Priv's Penguins. Gore, the tug of war continues, whereas just a few moments ago it looked like you have Unoo. We're going to run away with this one, but Priv's Penguins find themselves some good engagements, get themselves right back into the game. And luckily for them, and maybe unluckily, they do have a couple tier 2 towers that should be free and clear to be picked up before they have to address these Phoenixes.
And this is the thing. Normally, I'm looking at these as cool. That's going to be gold. If you're in the first 30 minutes of the game, that matters. Right now, they don't care that much about gold. It's ward coverage. It's going to be power potions as well. But you're looking at Titan health. Every tower up means a tankier Titan. Now that all of them are off the board, it'll be a lot easier to try and finish that one off. As they're potentially splitting this. I mean, it's 4-1 right now, but they're looking for another Phoenix.
There is a right side wave of fire minions that are going to crash in here and might not do much other than just chip away some damage onto that Titan. But something you have to be mindful of is now the second wave of fire minions is going to start to move itself into base. If nothing else, that might pull back one member of You Have Unoo, and this time around it's nicely. That's going to open the door to WitchCraft, who now addresses this mid lane Phoenix, while 4 members of Priv's Penguins move over to the left-hand side and try to fight there. WitchCraft up to the sky. Spirit of the Nine Winds flies through, stuns up MonsterxBomber, not able to find the kill. Left side Phoenix falls, but FreshKillsPark, he's in range to make good on some damages. WitchCraft is the first to go down. Priv's Penguins, they've lost 2 members. Yeah, you get yourself a Phoenix and some change, but not much more. That's a big fight for You Have Unoo. And those are 60-second death timers on Priv's Penguins.
And it looks like they're making the call to try and run it down mid, but I mean, it's just as dangerous a game for them as it was there for Priv's Penguin. In fact, I would say even more dangerous just because of the fact that you are being rushed down by fire minions, and now 2 waves and 2 lanes susceptible to it, but they are looking at mid. Granted, this Phoenix is weaker because they took it earlier, so it makes it a little easier to maybe break it down, find yourself a fight.
Well, they keep 2 members back at base. Priv's Penguins have 3 strong against 4. They're trying to counterattack. Privative sends the ultimate right on through. A couple locked up by Peripheri there. Privative so low, has to peel himself away, but FreshKillsPark is there trying to close that gap. No kill just yet. oBillyG, he's got Wicked on top of him. Aegis to keep him alive. One final shot is all it takes. And Wicked cleans up the mid laner for You Have Unoo. Priv's Penguins, they get a great pick on this Phoenix defense and might get a little bit more.
And that's 72 seconds, over 72 seconds, because I took me a few seconds to look down at him. Dr. Flik is the next on the chopping block, but I mean, he's so tanky right now, he's kind of ignoring it. There's 3 members pelting into him, but there's 2 waves of fire minions that are still running it down. It's back and forth between these 2 teams, but the respawn's coming down for Priv's Penguin and the timer they have, they could run this down.
That's tough. That's 45 seconds and a half-health Titan, half-health mid Phoenix as well.
I say go for it.
Yeah, they feel fine. They're going to move themselves down mid.
You've got ults.
You have nicely MonsterxBomber, FreshKillsPark, a couple squishies, and a support trying to save this game, trying to move yourself into the group stages. Priv's Penguins are just going to wait for that mid-minion wave to collapse itself in. Instead, the blink in from Peripheri is going to try to start off this fight. FreshKillsPark disengages from that one. MonsterxBomber trying to peel off just a few members. Spirit of the Nine Winds soars through right onto the Titan. Down it goes. Priv's Penguins, welcome to groups.
That was a push and pull for the last,
I
want to say last 35 minutes of the total game. I mean, there was a good cultivated lead from Priv's Penguins that slowly got melted down. And then it was just back and forth. Can we get this kill? Can they get this kill? Certain fights around the Fire Giant. I think, honestly, that last key, those 2 Phoenixes that they got kind of split sides as well to cause some distraction overall for Unoo. They didn't know where they wanted to focus it. Jingwei's over here. The rest of the team's up there on the map. And it's just like, where do we go? How do we handle it? The answer is you don't.
I guess at that point, though, it's a bit of disjointed shot calling there. Maybe you back up, just gain control of the map, and try again. But instead, it is Priv's Penguins who take this 45-minute game and move themselves onto group. That's all we've got for you today, so we're going to send it over to Aggro and the Consortium of Knowledge to take us home.